The Federal is organizing the Kanyakumari Mini Marathon 2024 to commemorate Mother's Day and Nurses Day this year on May 12. This event is sponsored by Repco Home Finance.
Hello and a warm welcome to Federal's special program, Capital Beat. The three phases of Lok Sabha election 2024 are over, which means that the fate of 283 Lok Sabha seats are sealed. Now, looking at the campaign of India Alliance and the BJP, which way is this election headed for? Now, is there a palpable anti-incumbency? That is question number one. What about the Modi magic? How does it fare in 2024? How is India Alliance poised in this election? Joining me now is veteran journalist and author and somebody who's been traveling all across. Neerja Chaudhary joins us. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, so much for joining. And my first question to you, ma'am, is that now with the three phases over, do you think that the picture is clear, or you would still wait to come to any sort of conclusion?
Look, this election narrative has been changing even as the election has been underway. In first phase and second phase, particularly the first phase, when I went to Western UP, I had everybody tell me this is not a Hindu-Muslim election. This was, there wouldn't be one single person who said that it is a Hindu-Muslim election, including the candidates. So it was an election about Narendra Modi. It was an election about the report card of the BJP. It was about Modi's leadership, his ability to deliver. And at that time, it was centrally Modi. Either you had people who were for him and what he had done, and they wanted him back, or you had people who were dissatisfied. Now, I keep saying this, that this election is not being like 2014. Or 2019, where in 2014 there was huge anger against the UPA government. A new star was on the horizon, Narendra Modi, as an alternative. In 2019, there was a nationalistic euphoria after Pulwama and the surgical strikes, which got a lot of people to come out and vote very decisively in favor of the BJP again. This election, there isn't a wave. And yet I would say where it's complex is that it's not that there is an akrosh or anger against the incumbent government. There may be voices of dissatisfaction that are expressed and expressed more forthrightly than was the case in the last election. Nor is there anger against Narendra Modi. If at all, he is popular. He remains popular at the end of 10 years. So, how do people decide? There are people who are for Narendra Modi continuing, very clear. This, you must give him more time. It cannot be done overnight. He's done A, B, C, D, E. There are people who say we are dissatisfied, but we will vote for him. Because who's there on the other side? And there are people who say, we are dissatisfied, so we don't want to vote for anybody. There's a large chunk of those people. And of course, there are people who say we are going to vote against. But it is not, it is not an election, as I say, where there is anger against the incumbent, or even that Modi is not popular still. So where will this take us in terms of seats? And we must also remember, even where there's dissatisfaction, what happens then is that, and there is no wave, the local issues come to the fore. The caste equations become much more dominant, as happens in every election. And therefore, I found in Western Uttar Pradesh, it was Modi versus local. Even in Rajasthan, Modi versus local issues. Now, how compelling will they be remains to be seen, because the BJP has a huge machinery, election machinery, the ability to walk the last mile, which the opposition doesn't. And where the opposition in a situation like this could have scored if there had been huge anger against the incumbent, as happened in 1977. Organization didn't matter. that opposition parties got together at the last moment to form the Janata Party. It didn't matter. So that
But
kind of
opposition, but the way the opposition is trying to put out the narrative is that it's almost like a repeat of 1977. That's what they are projecting in their campaign. Whether it is price rise, whether it is inflation, whether it is the issue of constitution and saving democracy, that has also become a dominant issue this time. In fact, for the first time, we are hearing people talking about constitution as the election issue. So, how much of all this is percolating really at the block level, at the village level, at the taluka level?
one thing that's clear is that the opposition is fighting back much more than in the past. So that much is clear. The other thing, of course, is that the opposition has also set the narrative this time. They brought the Constitution center stage. Like, willy-nilly, the Constitution in one way or another has become central to the discourse, the election discourse. Because the Congress is talking about the BJP, if it comes to power for the third time, will end the Constitution, will finish the Constitution. Now, the BJP has taken this, the Constitution narrative and said that the Congress plans to take away, for instance, the reservations that are given for the OBCs and SC/STs. They will give those reservations to the Muslims. The Congress thing about changing the Constitution has reached the Dalit tolas. This I found in Maharashtra, this I found in Rajasthan, this I found in Uttar Pradesh. The Dalits are apprehensive that 400 par, 400 par, does it mean change in the Constitution? And that change in the Constitution, does it mean ending of the reservation for them? There is apprehension. Now, the BJP leaders, both the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, have tried to allay these fears to say, no, the Constitution will not be changed. Even Baba Sahib Ambedkar, if he was to come here, will not be able to change that Constitution. But the word has got to the Dalit Tola. Now, the Prime Minister has done this on its head, saying that the Congress will take away the reservations of the OBCs and SC/STs and give it to the Muslims. Now, first two phases, it was clear and people said, this is not a Hindu-Muslim election. Everybody said that. But from the third phase onwards, the Prime Minister has, in that Banswara speech of his, where he talked about the gains of development and fruits of development being given only to the infiltrators, and they will take away your Mangal Sutra, they want to bring in an inheritance tax, they want to distribute wealth, all that, but in the context of, the cream of it going to the Muslim community, that is the vote bank of the Congress party, and it's gone for appeasing that vote bank. So they try to come back to the old tried and tested method of Hindu-Muslim polarization and trying to consolidate the Hindus behind the BJP, which has worked for them in the past. Now, actually, how much of it is working? I don't think it is working the way it did in 2014. Right. Where it became a Hindu-Muslim election. Certainly in North India, there was Muzaffarnagar and the riots there, if you remember, in 2013. And in 2019 also, it became an India-Pak, underlying everything else with the India-Pak theme. Now, I don't know to what extent, I don't see it working in that way. It may have some resonance. It may have people, some people fear, will our Mangal Sutras be taken away? But on the whole, I have not heard that kind of talk. And also, polarization, certainly in Uttar Pradesh, people have said repeatedly, this time we are not going to be taken in by Hindu-Muslim. Hindu-Muslim bahut ho gaya, hum log tang aa gaye, we have to live as neighbors. That kind of note was coming through. So, given all that, your first question, can you extrapolate from the first three phases a clear picture? I would find it very difficult. I would find it very difficult, but certainly, one can say this, that at the start of the election, it seemed that the BJP was romping home, coming back absolutely with a certainty. I would say they're still coming back. The suspense is about the number. The suspense, of course, the greater suspense is about what the Prime Minister, if he comes back, will do in his third term. So people have talked about Sharad Pawar, yes, 3-4 days talked about an undercurrent in Maharashtra, and he said he'd heard that there was an undercurrent also in Uttar Pradesh against the BJP. Maharashtra certainly is a very fascinating state and very difficult to decode, but it's not one way, that much is clear.
No, but are you saying that Maharashtra is also difficult to decode because Maharashtra looks like has been the political hunting ground of sorts for the BJP, and people have been saying that their BJP is in a very, very bad state. So what did you sense on the ground? Is it really in a bad state?
I would say it's divided.
Okay.
In Maharashtra. The allies of the BJP may not do so well because there is sympathy for Uddhav Thackeray and Sharad Pawar, and many people feel that their own people they had encouraged and built up, left them, stabbed them in the back, and joined the other side. And is that fair? So while Ajit Pawar and Eknath Shinde have the MLAs and MPs with them, and the organizational structure of the party and state power with them, on the other side is a sympathy factor, and how that's going to pan out all over Maharashtra remains to be seen. But the sense one gets, yes, is that it's not a one-way affair.
Right. So you're saying that it's not a one-way affair. That's very, very evident. Now, coming in terms of in terms of narratives as to what is happening. Now, look at Gujarat, where Rajputs and the Kshatriyas, they've been protesting. Similar kind of things are being observed in Western UP. Similar kind of stuff we saw in Mainpuri, where the Thakurs and the Yadavs, they were up in arms over that Maharana Pratap statue. That was a controversy which erupted. Now, are we in a position to really say at this point of time, after the end of 3 phases, that is the ground really slipping beneath the BJP's feet?
Difficult to say, to go to that extent.
Okay.
That the ground is slipping. But we know that the Rajputs were on the warpath in Uttar Pradesh. They have held their panchayats openly. They expressed a sense of grievance. And after the first phase, it was said that the Rajputs could not have come out so openly against the party that they have supported, unless there was some backing somewhere. And a fear that several Rajputs expressed was that could Yogi Adityanath be shunted to Delhi after the elections are over? They cited the example of Shivraj Chauhan, of Vasundhara Raje Scindia, senior leaders in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, who they felt were not given their due. And would that happen to Yogi Adityanath? That is it's a perception. Whether there is anything substantive in it, I don't know. But certainly several people expressed that. Now, have the Rajputs been mollified? Because in recent days, when the Prime Minister's roadshow took place in Ayodhya, and Yogi Adityanath was very prominently by his side. The political optics was correct. Rajnath Singh has given interviews, and he's a Rajput, that, 1 or 2 people may be disgruntled and unhappy doesn't mean the whole community is deserting us. So, what difference will it make? How much difference it will make? But what one can say with certainty is that whether it's Rajasthan or Uttar Pradesh or other parts, that there is a greater takkar today, than was expected. Even Haryana, even Gujarat, for instance. Yeah, I've had people call, from in the last few days saying 2-3-4 seatों में टक्कर है. It's not one way. Gujarat, you expect, the rhetoric has been how many votes they will win by. If it was 5 lakhs this time, to up the tally to 10 lakhs. But nobody questions that BJP is going to sweep Gujarat. But I would say again, cautiously, a takkar does not necessarily mean a victory.
Okay.
It could be last time you won by 5 lakhs, this time it may come down to 1 lakh. It means that the opposition is putting up a fight, the opposition is reviving, the opposition is beginning to work together. That, yes. Because the opposition does not have a machinery of the kind that the BJP has. And a machinery to get the voter to the booth, to get them to vote, to follow them up, all that is, it is of importance. Unless there is a situation where I say there is akrosh.
Right.
That akrosh is not there.
Not
There
visible.
is satisfaction, but it is not a anger of people that you see.
Right. But Neerja, this entire narrative about, like I've been in touch with the opposition leaders as well, and they say that, they're not sure whether they will be able to form the government or not. But this entire fight is to restrict BJP from getting 272. Now, are we looking at that? I mean, can you sense things in that direction, that probably the opposition is fighting to restrict this Modi juggernaut so that they are not able to cobble up a comfortable majority?
I think that has been the goal of the opposition from the beginning. To think that they will, who in the opposition will emerge as the single largest party?
Right.
Which is going to be the single largest party. If you take the hypothesis that they are going to come below the majority mark, only BJP. It's too large, 303. How much will they come down? And how much will the Congress go up from 50 upwards? A regional party cannot do it. They don't have a formal alliance with a common symbol to be called by the election commission if they get a largest number. So that is a given. And to bring down the BJP below the majority mark in order to put what they call ankush, a lot of people use this word, ankush, rein them in, and so that the checks and balances kick in. It is not, one-way street and able to do whatever you want. So I think that has been the opposition strategy from the beginning. What I wish they had got their act together much earlier. It's now the Janata that's getting the act together for them. Right. If there's dissatisfaction, it's not that they got their act together in terms of sheet sharing, they left it to the last minute, and there were differences, and of course Nitish Kumar left, and a whole lot of things happen, as we know. But let's see.
Did you see on the ground anywhere that the BJP and the RSS cadres seem to be withdrawn, as what the sense is coming out, that the BJP cadre looks very disillusioned. They feel that they are disconnected from the central leadership of the BJP. I've heard people also saying, and some RSS people talking off the record, that this time RSS is not too much interested in propping, and helping BJP.
I think certainly in places, UP, for instance, people said, no, it doesn't feel like an election.
Yes.
Because hoardings nahi hai, there are no banners, posters, no, people said this, that no workers, karyakartas shouting Jai Shri Ram slogans not on the streets to be seen this time. And part of the explanation given was that if we are going to win for 400, and so, why get into it? I mean, it's a done deal kind of thing. So there is an apathy. Of course, partly that. And I also heard that the RSS has not come out, that I heard in UP and Maharashtra both. Yes. I don't know the truth or the facts of it, that they had not come out to campaign as they have done in the earlier elections. But I find that also, would they want a non-BJP government to come to power? Certainly not. Would they want the BJP to be reined in? What I heard was that the RSS has said that the BJP is a mature party. They can handle that strategy, and therefore, we don't have to do what we've done over the years. Again, I would say I don't know the facts of it. This is what you hear from people. Informally, as you say, privately, as you say, within the larger BJP family.
Right. So, how much of it is really going to impact BJP this time? Will they be able to get the numbers which they got in 2019, or they? You seem to be. I mean, or are we to sense that the numbers could come down?
Again, difficult to say. I think if they get more than 303, they should be very happy. Even one more than 303, bettering the last tally. Because they are going to lose in some of the states.
Yes, that's true.
Karnataka, can they reach 25 up to 28 with a Congress government in power there, making an all-out bid to maximize their numbers? A bit difficult. So they will lose some. Will they? Uttar Pradesh, of course, the two states, North Indian states like Haryana, Rajasthan, even Madhya Pradesh, ek, do, teen, char will they lose in these states? And Bihar, will they go to 39 out of 40? A bit difficult. Maharashtra, will they get 23? The BJP got on its own, and 41 with the ally Shiv Sena. Will they reach that number? 41 with their allies. Maharashtra, again, it looks a bit difficult. So where will they make up? One is Bengal. Some people say yes, Orissa. Telangana, they may improve from the 4 that they had last time, because I suspect this time it's going to be a direct contest, more of a direct contest between Congress and the BJP, and the BRS may start to cave in. So UP was a state they were looking at where they could up their tally by even 10. Go back to the 2014 number. Last time they were 62, in 14 they were 71. So is that going to happen? With the kind of voices that we are hearing, that you talked about. Rajputs, have they been brought around? Has there been consolidation of the Jats with RLD joining hands with them in Western UP? And so on. Is it only Jat dissatisfaction or more than that? These are all questions to which we will know the answers when the results come, and then we will say, oh, we should have seen it this way. And we did see it this way. So
but the narrative, Neerja, is changing with every election. Like what you said, that initially there was no Hindu-Muslim card which seemed to be working. But then again, the Prime Minister has come back to his Hindu-Muslim rhetoric. And now we do not know what is the kind of narrative which they will be putting up in the coming phases. So do you think that the election is still developing and it would be difficult at this point of time to come to any sort of conclusion?
I think if you want to say one thing clearly, yes, the narrative is constantly changing as the election progresses. And to say anything definitely, even at the end of 3 phases, is difficult. But the Prime Minister has this time been very aggressive about the whole Hindu-Muslim question, even to the extent of the Congress will undo the Ram temple.
Yes.
Of course, the Congress has put out a corrective there, but a rebuttal. But I mean, it's become a very sharply polarized.
For a Prime Minister to go to that extent and say that they will upturn the Supreme Court judgment and the Babri locks will be put up, like what he said yesterday. How would you read that statement?
I think that's what I say. He's been much, much more aggressive on the Hindu-Muslim question this time than even in the last 2 elections.
But can you read it as a sense of desperation on the part of BJP?
Or you can say they are going, they are pulling out all stops. And as they do, they will not leave one seat unattended. And whatever they can do, that's the character of the BJP vis-a-vis elections. They don't sit back. And when things start to, they get feedback, they course correct very quickly. Now they do course correction. So is it that character coming out? And they, as I say, they're not leaving anything to chance at all.
But the tall claims are made for the 400 plus seats or 370, as what Prime Minister claimed on the floor of the House. Do you see that happening at all?
Look, if the BJP gets 275, if it reaches the majority figure, it will get 400 plus. Because everybody, barring a few parties, will go that side. Will want to stay. The regional forces will want to stay on the right side of her. I wouldn't then put it past a 400 plus if they hit the majority figure. You know, there'll be, as we don't need to name the party, there'll be few parties who will be left on this side. So let's see, is all I can say.
Right. One or two quick questions before I wind up is about the role of the Election Commission. People have been accusing that Election Commission has been biased, and especially the manner in which, for the Banswara speech of the Prime Minister, the notice was not sent directly to him. The notice was sent to JP Nadda. So how would you see the role of Election Commission?
I think the Election Commission, you're right, it was the first time that notices were sent to the presidents of the party, in the case of the Prime Minister, Mr. Nadda, and then notice went for Rahul to Mr. Kharge, the president of the Congress. Now, if the opposition is so unhappy and dissatisfied in an ongoing election, then I think the Election Commission could have done better. And because Caesar's wife has to be above suspicion, and the Election Commission of India, of which we have been so proud over the decades, conducting a democratic electoral exercise of the scale which doesn't exist anywhere in the world. So it's not surprising that the whole world watches us. And to the furthest corners of the country, they managed to, get the machines and get the whole thing done in a free and fair manner. That it's conducted. So, given all that, I think the Election Commission could have done better to allay the fears and suspicions of the opposition.
Right. But what do you think is the reason why they've not been able to why they are not able to use their spine, to hold out the mirror to the people for whom it's meant?
No, I wouldn't say that. Election commissioners, when they sit in that chair, we've seen this from TN session onwards. They are there as custodians of free and fair elections, and elections are the heartbeat of India's democracy. So I would not, make charges at them, without very solid kind of evidence. But as I say, I feel that they could have done better.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching this interview, subscribe to our channel, send us your feedback, and stay tuned to The Federal.
The Federal is organizing the Kanyakumari Mini Marathon 2024 to commemorate Mother's Day and Nurses Day this year on May 12. This event is sponsored by Repco Home Finance.